Okay, I'm going to break the spooky house drawing down into steps that are way easier to follow than you might imagine, so that you can have a go, create this, and amaze yourself. So I'll be using the app Procreate for this tutorial, and I'll be using the default A4 canvas, which is 297 by 210 millimeters at 300 dpi. The color profile will be the sRGB code that ends in 2.1. It's here on the list within Procreate 2. In terms of the brushes, if you've downloaded the latest version of Procreate, you'll need to choose a brush set to go back to libraries. I'm not using the Procreate library, I'm using the classic one. And I will only be using the default brushes, so you don't need to download anything there. In terms of the colors, there's a link down in the description that takes you to my Patreon page where you can download the color file for free to save you some time. Or alternatively, the hexadecimal values are down in the description as well, and you can piece it together for yourself. I'd like to say a massive thank you to those people who do support me over at Patreon. It makes a huge difference, so thank you so much. And Patreon is the place that you can gain access to exclusive content such as extended versions of most of these tutorials. Specifically this tutorial, there'll be more information about the extended version of that at the end of this video, so stay tuned. And aside from Patreon, just giving the video a thumbs up, leaving a comment, and of course subscribing, all of those things really help too. So thank you for that. And with all of that said and done, we're going to get started. So the first thing we're going to do is rotate the canvas to the portrait orientation. I'm then going to go to the colors, use the first color on the top row. I've only got 2 rows for this tutorial. I'm going to drag the color into the canvas and it flood fills. Now if there's any slight color variation from my image to your screen, then bear in mind that different screens are calibrated differently, and of course my camera will slightly skew the colors too. Next, I'm going to go to the second color on the top row. I'm going to create a new layer for it. I'm going to go in with a soft brush with an airbrushing. I'm going to go 100% opacity, maybe about 70% size, and then straight through the center. We'll do a band of that. Then we'll go to the adjustments, the Gaussian blur. We'll blur it in to about the 80%, deselect. And it just creates a nice gradient there at the top. I do feel like it could be ramped up even more, so I'm just going to simply with the layer slide and duplicate it, and it just takes more of that brightness into the scene. Tap on the top version, merge down. I'll create a new layer, layer 3, and I'm going to go to the third color on the first row. I'm going to go in with the soft brush with an airbrushing. I'm going to put it down, 10% size, about 30% strength opacity. And then in this bottom section, I want to leave a little bit for a path and some foreground. About 1/3 of the way up, we're just going to do a streak of this across. Doesn't need to be overly labored on at all. Just a few taps, just so it's not a completely straight line. It has an organic feel. To further aid that, I'm going to go to the organic rainforest brush. 3% size, again about the 30% strength, opacity, and just extend some of that texture. We don't want too many, or a sense of too many leaves on the tree. Line at the back there, and then simply we're going to go to the adjustments, the Gaussian blur, and slide the whole layer across to about 10% and deselect. Create a new layer, layer 4, skip a color, we'll go to the 5th color, back in with the airbrushing, where we airbrushing soft brush, 20% size, 100% opacity, and just underneath there, do a band of this dark color, next color, 6th color, and just aim for the line itself, the bottom line, and then we'll go to the 7th color, the last color, just fill in that bottom section with that dark, the darkest tone we have. Then adjustments, Gaussian blur, and slide that across to about the 30% and deselect. Go to our layers, create a new layer, layer 5, and this time I'm going to go back to the 4th color. I'm going to go in with the inking studio pen. I'm going to put it about the 10% size, 100% opacity, and importantly, I don't want it down here. It's going to appear lighter than the background. We want it from, you can see pretty much the band there where it joins. And it's just going to be a note darker than the background. And from that line, we'll just do an initial branch or two. And the line should get thinner as it goes up. Maybe I'll do a very kind of close line to there. And then we can have branches that grow off from those. We get the main branches in first, and we definitely don't want them to be curvy or too kind of twist and turny either. Just a hint so they're not just straight lines. Maybe one's next to it as well, and they can intersect, cross over each other. And zoom in, turn it down, 5%, maybe only about 60% strength. And then we can add finer branches, and it just takes a few moments to really get into the finer branches, and they don't need to be overly neat either. So just really start to pile them up. We're going for a kind of slightly later autumn, where the leaves have really all fallen off. Heading into winter, maybe turn the brush size up again, 10%, maybe a bit too thin in places. It is pressure sensitive, so as you release the pressure, it gets thinner anyway. Go over the trunks, make them thicker. It is a bit time consuming, but the longer you spend on this, I think the better effect you'll get. Doesn't need to be perfect. It is going to be a background element, and we're going to blur it in. But spend a few moments, get it looking as good as you can within a relatively short time. Then we're going to go to the adjustments, the perspective blur, and put it in the center of the tree and then slide that across. We'll do it to about, well, let's do it to 100% in fact, and you can see it just kind of blurs out the top edges, which is quite useful. Gives you a sense of movement, a bit of a dynamic feel. Stay on the same layer. I'm going to go in with the organic rainforest brush again, same color, 3% size, 30% strength, and just at the end of these tree branches, the finer branches, we'll go over this a bit. It just adds a little bit of a sense that you have density there in the finer branches. So build them in a bit more. Doesn't need a huge amount of time spending on that either. Just creates an effect. We can slide and duplicate that layer. And then we can go transform, move it over here, maybe go here, flip it horizontal. We don't want to rely upon it too much, but it's a good start. Just have a bit of detail on the edge there, maybe on freeform, reduce the size. Like so. It's on a new layer anyway, but we'll create a new one. And then we can repeat the process. So we go back to the inking studio pen, 100% opacity, 10% size, and add some new trees. And you should, I imagine, be a bit faster the second time. Once you realise it's going to get blurred into quite a large extent anyway. You can afford to be a little less precious about it. Build up these branches. A little bit time consuming for this element, but because we're spending the time to make this bit look pretty decent, then it adds so much to the context and the scene. Let's turn it down, 5% size, 60% strength. Get some of those finer branches. which don't need to look good when you zoom in. There's nothing specially neat about them at all. They don't need to be for the effect. Then I'll keep on the same layer for this. I'm going to go in with the organic rainforest brush. Should be at the same settings, 3% size. Don't want that there, 30% strength. And then just bulk out the edges to a certain extent. It gives this sense of, rather than leaves, gives a sense of bulking out of those finer little branches in the mix. Doesn't necessarily convey foliage. It just looks a little bit like those finer branches. So with that layer, again, we're going to go to the adjustments, the perspective blur, put it in the center of the tree area here, whiz it across. You don't need to do it all the way to 100. If a little less does the trick, then maybe rely a little less upon it. So certainly at 70%, we've kind of got the idea there, and I think that works fine. Yeah, and I think that works well enough for us. So we've not got too many different layers. Let's take layer 7, tap on it and merge down. And then the top version of layer 5, tap on it and merge down. So they're all on one layer now, which is just more efficient. Now we're going to move on to the main feature, which is the house. So we'll create a new layer, layer 6. We'll go to the selection, rectangle, and we'll just draw any old kind of rectangle or square. It doesn't really matter if it's accurate to begin with. We'll go to the first color on the bottom row, and we're going to drag into that rectangle to flood fill. And deselect. Transform, freeform. First, let's center it. And we just want kind of an equal distance on either side. Doesn't need to be exacting to the pixel, but as close as you can do it by eye. A little bit down from what we could view as a horizon, but not much. Where the bottom of the trees are, just a little bit further down from there. And you can see it's kind of like a nice rectangular shape, maybe a little bit taller. If you judge that top section about halfway for the top line of that square, that rectangle, deselect. Go to the layer, slide and duplicate it. I'm going to go to a dark color. We'll go for the last color, the 7th color on the top row. Drag into the new version. So now we've got dark blue and a dark black. Transform, freeform, and we're going to pinch it in again, so we get a different kind of rectangle. Want a similar distance on either side. Again, just judge it by eye as best you can. We want it to just be a tiny bit down at the bottom. Perhaps I need to zoom in for this. A little bit further down, and then a little bit further up, for more of a distance between there than it is here. Just so it's going to give the impression that it juts out. Maybe make it a little bit more narrow. Again, it's not a precise thing particularly. It's just so it looks right by eye. And deselect. Go to our layers and create a new layer, layer 8. I'm going to go into the airbrushing hard brush. Go in with the 7th color on the top row, black. 2% size, 100% opacity. And then we're going to do a triangle, hold it when you rejoin at the top, and it should snap to a better straight edged triangle. Tap on it at the top, and we're going to put it to an equilateral triangle initially. Might be a little bit off. Tidy it up if you need to. I'm going to drag the black into the center so it fulfills. Just get rid of any little anomalies. I'm going to go to the transform, put it on uniform initially. Put it down. It's a little bit angled, a bit askew, so with the green circle, slightly rotate it so it's better aligned. Then transform. I want to make it slightly bigger, so I want it to stick out on either side equally. Bring it down so it joins, maybe a bit more. Then tap on it again and put it on freeform this time. And from the top blue circle, not the green one, squash it down. So it's less of an equilateral and has a different kind of angle here at the top. It just feels a bit better when it's a bit more squat, like that. I'm going to take that triangle, slide and duplicate it. Go to my colors, going to go to the first color on the 2nd row. Drag into the new triangle, changes the color. I'm going to drag it underneath the first one, easy to do by hand. Then transform, uniform initially, increase the size, rearrange it so that it sticks out at the edges of that original rectangle. I want to stick out a fair amount on either side. Again, it's a little bit askew, so just rotate it if need be. Reposition it as much as you need to. Deselect. And then I want these angles to be not quite as steep, so again, transform, freeform. Blue circle at the top, bring it down, changes the angle. I want more like a kind of 45-degree-ish angle to it. Maybe a bit more down. It's going to be a slightly different angle than the triangle at the front. We can always readjust this later if it isn't quite sitting right. For now, just roughly, like so. And then I'm going to go into the selection, rectangle, and I'm going to create a rectangle. You might have to have a few goes at this, but I want to cut off the top section of that back triangle. Now, I want the bottom of it to just clip a section of the front triangle like this. So I created a triangle, or a rectangle rather, that just cuts off the black, or near the top edge of the black one. This is a good section there. Halfway on the black one's about there, a bit higher up than that, like so. Then I can go to the layer, tap on it, and clear, and it's just got rid of that top section. Now, I can do some adjustments still. I'm going to take that layer, drag it underneath, do it by finger, underneath layer 6, then transform, freeform with the blue circle at the bottom of the rectangle. Bring it down a bit more. Looks a little bit off, and that's fine. Sometimes these things need fine tuning. Maybe just a bit more of that triangle at the front, maybe a bit more up there. Then freeform, top left corner, pinch from there, bring it in, top right corner, hold, pinch in from there, and it just changes the angle. Try and get it the same on both sides, like this. Feel happier with that. Stay on layer 8 with the hard brush, still the first colour on the second row, 2% size, 100% opacity. I'm just going to do an angle down like that and try to match it on the other side. Try to get them the same. If there's any imperfections that you're perceiving, just slide and duplicate layer 8, transform, flip it horizontally, and then you should guarantee it's more symmetrical on either side. You can see there I've had a slight change of angle. It wasn't matching either side, that distance, so now we've made it more so. We can take the top version, tap on it and merge down. I'm going to go to the triangle, transform. I want to make it a little bit taller. Top blue circle, just pinch it up. Go to uniform now and just increase the size and make sure it's in the center, like so. Just a little bit of fine tuning. You might find that you need to do that a little bit later as well, but everything's on different layers, so we can do that. From layer 8, we'll create a new layer and we'll tap on the new layer and put on clipping mask, which links it to that triangle. So that means we can only add colors in the boundary of the triangle, but it is on a separate layer. So I'm going to go in with the 5th color on the second row, medium hard brush, 5% size, 100% opacity, and just do it to about the halfway on that triangle, only roughly. Then go to the adjustments, the Gaussian blur, across to 30% should do, deselect. Then go to the eraser, put the eraser on the medium hard brush, 1% size, 100% opacity, and then we're going to do a series of lines that cut across. Hold it till it snaps. Judge it as best you can. You want them pretty evenly going up. And they can easily go a bit askew, so just be mindful. if after you've done quite a few, they don't quite line up with the top of that roof, for example, and there is a fix. So just do a load of lines first. You won't notice them in the shadows. If they have gone a bit strange, then you can always go to transform, go to rotate, and you can move it around. You can go to distort, pull it up from a corner, and you can readjust them so that, you know, if they've gone a bit wonky, you can readjust them in the distort. I'm going to go to the adjustments, the Gaussian blur, and I don't want it to be so crispy, so I'm going to blur it in to about the 3%, in fact no, a bit more, 4%, deselect. I'm going to create a new layer. Again, tap on it and put on the clipping mask. Going with the same colour, maybe the medium brush with an airbrushing. Top end of 2% size, 100% opacity, and then we're just going to do a line, hold it till it snaps, straighten it, readjust it. Another one over here. Do it a couple of times if it's ended up different than the other side. On the bottom. Now I'm going to slide and duplicate it, and the bottom version, I'm going to go to the adjustments, the hue, saturation and brightness, and turn the brightness down to none. Deselect. And then the top version, adjustments, Gaussian blur, blur it in just slightly, not too far, about a 3%, and it just does us the favour of creating a slightly darker edge to that shape. On layer 10, I'm just going to add some more shadow, going with the first colour on the second row, soft brush with an airbrushing, 3% size, maybe 20% strength, and I can just work in a little bit more, create more of a shadow here and here. Make a bit more of a feature of it. I'm going to go to layer 11, going with the eraser, put the eraser on the soft brush, turn it down, 1% size, about 10% strength. Just through there a little bit, create a sense that it isn't quite as absolutely rigidly neat. Doesn't need a massive amount of detail. Create some darkness there at the places where it joins at the very top. Then I'm going to switch to the fourth colour on the second row. Still the soft brush, 2% size, 20% strength. And well, I'm going to use this just to make it a little bit more natural, a little less perfect. Bring up some of these lighter colours and just be a bit more mindful when we come up here. Let them disappear out. Back with the first colour on the middle row. 1% size, 20% strength. In fact, maybe a little bit bigger, higher on that 1%. And we want to just have that less crispy on this section. Maybe it just has a bit of an overhang. Maybe it just has a little section at the bottom that's slightly in shadow. Back to the fourth colour. Just have a couple of points in here. Structural support elements. Doesn't need overly explaining. Now I'm going to take layer 8 to layer 11, pinch it together. A bit tricky to do. There we go. Then we can slide and duplicate it. The bottom version. Grab it, transform, move it down, put it on freeform, and then we're going to squash it. So it needs to extend the same distance at either side, pretty much. But we can have a really nice squashed down version of it. It's going to be a little kind of roof section to the front part of the house. Maybe it's about there. Deselect. It gives us the position, even if we're going to change some of the details later. For example, we don't want those lines, so we can go in with a smudge. A smudge on a medium brush with an airbrushing, 2% size, 50% opacity, and maybe tap on the layer and put on the alpha lock. That way, when we mush it in a little bit, we'll push it up from the bottom edge. I want to preserve that, so just go mindful when you're encroaching upon that area, so we don't want to destroy that, but everything else can be a little bit more mushed together. We don't need it to be exactly the same. something like this. I think there's a bit too much shadow there, so just push it closer to that edge, that line. I'm going to go back to layer 8, tap on that, create a layer above that, layer 11, and then tap on that and put on the clipping mask. Going with the 4th colour still, on the 2nd row. Medium brush with an airbrushing, 2% size, 100% opacity. Rearrange it if you need to. And then just at the bottom edge of that, we're going to do a line all the way across. Hold it till it snaps, and then you can readjust it. Like so. Doesn't need to be that strong, so I'm going to tap on the end, turn it down to about 50%. And tap on it and merge down. Layer 8. Okay, I'm going to go to layer 6, which is that front dark rectangle. Create a layer above it, layer 11. Tap on it and put on the clipping mask. Then I'm going to go to the wrench, put on the drawing guide, which by default should be a grid, but if it isn't, go to the edit drawing guide and put it on the 2D grid. And you can choose the grid size, whatever is appropriate. And I'm actually going to judge it so that it's roughly speaking similar to the board structure, the wood structure of the actual building. Now, in order to see it, perhaps you need to change colour. So put it on this section up here to any colour you like, just so you can see it. Opacity you can turn up and down. I don't want it too strong. You need to just be able to judge it. I've put the grid size to 25%. Whoops, a bit fiddly. Roughly about 25%. Click done. That means now I can go to the layer, tap on it and put on the drawing assist. Maybe with the lowest on the 2%, I can just aim for the center of these. Aim for the very, very center. You're going to get some variation, but as long as you've got a gap, it has a kind of naturalistic look. Sometimes it can be a little bit closer together. It just takes a minute, and if it slightly deviates, don't worry. I'm aiming for the center. Let me see how fiddly this is. So you want to be able to get it so it's all in one go. Sometimes you get in the rhythm and it just works, and you stop and then it's a bit fiddly. And judge whether it's the right amount of boards. I think it is, but if we deem that it isn't, not all is lost. We can always reduce that number to it across. Now you can't zoom in with this, you need to be able to see the whole area, so position it however works best. However you find it easiest. There can be variation, that's fine, but you don't want it to be wildly different at any point. And then just, you can get to the point where you're almost ignoring that grid, if it helps to ignore it. If it doesn't, then slow down, stick to aiming in the center of that. Like that. Doesn't quite line up at the bottom, I'm not too bothered. Let's go to the wrench, turn off the drawing guide, deselect, and then you've got the sense of boards there at the front, and you can use them however you want. So I'm perhaps going to slide and duplicate it to make them a bit stronger. Tap on the top version and merge down. I'm going to take that and adjustments, Gaussian blur, and just zoom in. Blur it in a little bit, not drastically, maybe just into the 3%. Softens it a little bit. I'm going to go in with the eraser. Put the eraser on the medium brush with an airbrushing, slightly higher on the 2%, and 100% opacity. Erase off the edges. We still have the drawing guide on, which is useful. Go back to the brush, and then just on the edge there, a couple of times. like so. I feel like I could do with it pushing a little bit brighter, so I can take the whole layer, slide and duplicate it. That's too much, so top version, tap on the N, dial it back and maybe put it about 40% strength, opacity, and then I can take the top version, tap on it and merge down like that. Now I'm going to go in with the eraser again, soft brush, 3% size, 20% strength, and I just want to create a bit of a shadow there at the top and then here as well. Put it up 5% and just bring that down a little bit more. You can always take away more later if necessary. I'm going to take layer 11, tap on it and merge down with layer 6. And then with that whole layer, slide and duplicate it. Take the bottom version, transform, freeform, move it over to this edge and bring it in from this side. Not quite, I'll zoom in. Not quite so you can see the edge of it there, so it's slightly hidden behind that one. That works. But you take it right up to the very edge there so that you can see this little bit on the edge. Bring it down so the shadow is just underneath that roof feature. Deselect, slide, duplicate it again. Well, not the original version, you're duplicating this side version. Transform, flip it horizontally, why not, and then just move it across. And just a question of lining it back up again. Zoom in if it helps. Fine tune it. Looks about right. Let's take the two lower versions of layer 6, tap on that one, merge down, so that they're both on one layer. We'll come back and we'll add more shadow and adjust, but we've got another feature here we need to create, the lower section. I'm going to do that with layer 8, slide and duplicate that, and that was the feature up at the top, the roof. We've got an extra version now, so we're going to move it above bottom layer 6, transform, move it down, and it's going to be part of the little structure down here. So I'm okay if it extends either side. We're doing it on transform. Pinch down from the top blue circle, want it in the center so it lines up with the apex of that lower section. But then we want to bring it down lower. Bring it in either side, bring it up so that it just a little bit underneath that triangle. Oops. So you can see just a little bit that line underneath the front one. Deselect. It's very sharp, so I'm just going to go to the adjustments, the Gaussian blur, and normally I wouldn't blur in architectural details, but just it's so sharp I'm going to blur it in slightly to maybe just 2%, takes the edge off it. There, sits a little bit better now. Sometimes when you squash something in with a very crisp edge, it overdoes that crispness. Let's go back to layer 6 momentarily. I'm going to go in with the eraser to the soft brush. 5% size, 10% strength. I just want to further exaggerate some of the shadow here, a little bit under there, and then almost like a curve here and here, just to set them back there even more. Brings this section a bit further forward. So maybe the light is just getting there and there in those corners just a little bit more. And then maybe here as well, just a little bit. And here again, just a little bit. Again, just projects this bit further forwards, a bit better. Just in those corners, a bit more shadow up here. We don't want it to look patchy, although we've got other elements that will help with that anyway. So we're going to create some windows. So we'll go to the very top. Oops, create a new layer, layer 13. We'll go to the darkest color, the 7th color on the top row. Selection, rectangle, create a little rectangle. It doesn't need to be in the exact position, but we'll get it roughly, and then we'll just drag that color into the rectangle and deselect. Then with perhaps the hard brush with an airbrushing, 1% size, 100% opacity, I'm just going to create a slight curve here to here, hold it till it snaps, and then you can just fill it in. Maybe that is sufficient. Maybe it needs a bit more of a curve, so try again a bit taller. Hold it. Fill it in. That looks a bit better, although I want it to be a bit narrower, so freeform, transform, pinch it in. I'm a bit happy with that. Again, we can make it taller or shorter as we need as we go along. I'm going to create a new layer, layer 14, tap on it and put on the clipping mask, which attaches it to layer 13. I'm going to tap on the layer and put also on the drawing assist. I'm going to go to the 6th color on the top row with the medium brush with an airbrushing. Not quite the top end of 1%, just a little bit down from there, and 100% opacity. And the drawing assist, if we can just go to the top, draw a line down, gets us that top beam for the window really nicely. Draw a line across, and then simply around the edge, certainly for the left and right, we can bring in a beam, and then for the bottom section. And then for the top section, just go to the layer, turn off the drawing assist, and we'll do a line that follows the curve, hold it, and that helps. I'm going to go to the layer, slide and duplicate it, top version, transform, uniform, just pinch it in ever so slightly and reposition it a bit more, reposition it. Adjustments, hue, saturation and brightness, and just turn the brightness up a little bit. That's the transform, you can see it now. And it just creates a slightly lighter sense of it and a darker edge around the edges. Go back to maybe the 7th color with the medium brush, turn the size down 1% and the opacity about 30, just underneath there. Create a little bit of a shadow on that cross beam. You can make it slightly less perfect around the frame. Little dashes that just kind of join the sections together quite nicely. Just make it less perfect looking. Some lines that just cut through. Otherwise it can look a little bit too rigid, too geometric. A bit more organic if you just add some looser lines in there as well. I'm going to create a new layer. Tap on that, put the drawing assist on, and again, well, this time to a lighter colour, the 4th colour. Medium brush. Let's go for the 3rd colour on the top row. Medium brush. Not quite the top end of 2%, a bit down from there, and 100% opacity. Zoom in. Try to have it hug the side of that. Slide and duplicate it. Do the same with the top version. That way you can just position it better. Take the top version, merge down. So again, both on one layer. Turn the brush size down 1%. Tap on the layer, turn off the drawing assist. We can join it up, hold it like so. Maybe we can have some kind of sill. Hold it. And then we've got pretty much a window. Back with the 6th colour, medium brush, 1% size, maybe 70% strength. We can just go around a bit more freehand. Like so, and somehow I feel that that colour's a little bit off, but we'll adjust it. Perhaps I could even go to the adjustments here, hue, saturation and brightness, just turn that brightness down a little bit, maybe put it at 48%. I feel that that's a bit better, sits there more naturally. I'm going to take layer 14, tap on it and merge down. So we've got them on one layer now. I'm going to tap on layer 14, tap on it and merge down. So that window features on one layer, and then tap on layer 16, tap on that and merge down. So the window's all on one layer. I'm going to slide and duplicate, transform, create another window over here and put it on freeform. I can make it narrow. Doesn't have to be exactly the same. Bring it down maybe a bit further up from this edge so it's narrow here and a bit wider there. We can adjust it until you feel it's appropriate. Then I'm going to take that version, which is the adjusted one, slide and duplicate it, transform, put it over here so it's symmetrical, try to judge it so it's the same. I might even then take the top version, merge down, got 2 windows, and then with the 2 of them merge, slide and duplicate that, transform. I'm going to move it down to the bottom section. The light areas are too light, but we can adjust that, that's not a problem. Put it so it's just the top bit of the arch is in the shadow area. Deselect. I'll just move them further down, freeform, let's just stretch it out a bit more. That's fine. With that top version, we can tap on it and put on the alpha lock. Maybe go to the 7th colour on the top row, 3% size, 20% strength, and we can just subdue the top section into the shadow a bit more on that side and this side. Make it sit better in context. I'm going to create a new layer, layer 14, and I'm going to go in with the 5th colour on the top row with the soft brush with an airbrushing, 1% size, maybe 30% strength. We're going to add some details through the windows, some curtains, maybe even smaller actually, lower on that 1%. Just create the sense of some flowing kind of shapes there through the window, curtains. Try and have a line sort of join up top and bottom, but we don't want it to go over the cross beam, so stop and start at either side. What other colours have we got? We've got the 4th colour. Maybe certain bits, the curtains, just to catch the light a little bit more. Fill it in as much as you like. You can always go in with the eraser and remove bits. So eraser to the soft brush, 1% size, 30% strength, and again we can just tidy that up, reclaim some of that shadow at the top that would exist, maybe the shadow underneath, reclaim the cross of the window, and then just tidy it up. You can see it didn't need to be overly neat. That's the brush. Again, maybe on that basis we'll just be really quick. A few curtain effects, sweeping a bit more dramatically back to the eraser. 100% on the eraser just for the bits we know it definitely doesn't belong. Then turn it down, 30%, create more of a shadow on the top. Reclaim the little cross beam of the window at the edges too. That sits quite nicely. Back in with the brush. I'm going to put it up a little bit more higher on that 1% now that we're not being as neat. Got a really untidy technique, but it works. Eraser, 100%. Remove the outer bits that definitely don't belong there. Reduce it to 30%. Remove that where the shadow would be. Take it away from the edges and from the beam of the window, like so. Maybe the 6th colour, still the same brush, and we'll get a suggestion of things down here, but it's largely in the shadow, so I don't feel inclined to go overboard with that. Just a couple of touches, suggestive, that's probably sufficient. Might be a bit creepier if that one is actually more closed together, so 3rd colour. Let's just close down that. Still not happy with the colour there, so back to that, adjustments, hue, saturation and brightness. Let's just turn that brightness down even further, 49%, and let's take the saturation out of it. Let's put it about 40% saturation. I think that just sits better. Sometimes you get a variety of different colours and for some reason it works or it doesn't, and I think that sits better. I can tap on that and merge down with the windows. So that's all in one layer. I'm going to take those windows, adjustments, Gaussian blur, and again, I don't want anything to be overly crisp, so I'm just going to blur it in slightly. 2%. It helps just soften it in the context. Go to our layers, create a new layer, layer 14. Let's create a doorway. I'm going to do it as a series of rectangles and then kind of make it work. I'm not going to do it as an overly detailed doorway. I'm going to go to the selection, rectangle, draw a rectangle. Then I'm going to go to the darkest color, the 7th color on the top row, drag into that rectangle, deselect, transform, move it, put it in the center, and I want to make it a bit taller. Still want a bit of a section at the top, a bit taller. Slide and duplicate the layer, transform, freeform, squash it, stretch it, either side, squash it more, and then have it above, so a little bit of a gap, like that. Take the layer 14, slide and duplicate it again, transform, freeform, squash it, make it really narrow. I want it to fill that space, make it much shorter, make it so it's lined up the edge there, best you can. If you struggle to do that, move in, try again. Take that, slide and duplicate it, and let's move a version over to this side. I'm going to take all of them and just pinch them together so they're on one layer. Create a new layer, layer 15. I'm going to go in with the medium brush with an airbrushing. I'll do it bright initially, 4th color on the bottom row. 2% size, 100% opacity, again with the medium brush with an airbrushing. Just create some beams that cut across, hold it till it snaps, adjust it, up, hold it till it snaps. You can always tidy this up, don't worry. Bring that line down, hold it, bring it down, hold it, bring the line down, again hold, and same for this side. Now I'm going to go and tap on that and put on the alpha lock. Maybe I can go to 5th color on the top row, soft brush, 5% size, 30% strength, reduce some of that brightness down, go to maybe the 1st color on the bottom row, again just reduce some of that darkness down a little bit, don't need it to be that bright, and then lastly, 7th color on the top row, just a little bit, top, not too much, subdues it. 4th color, let's just soften it in a bit. Okay, before we go any further, I'm going to add some mist into the lower area that cuts in front of the house and in other areas. So I'll go down to layer 5 first and create a new layer above that. Layer 16 is down here. We'll go in with the airbrushing soft brush. We'll go for the 1st color on the top row, maybe about 7% size and about 20% strength, and just at the bottom area down here where the trees are, create some low-lying mist that just kind of disguises and gets rid of the bottom of the tree area. Then we'll go to the very top, create a layer above there with the 1st color still. This time 10% size and 10% strength. I just want to go over the front of the house. Allow it to kind of obscure the bottom area of the house. Now this is a bit light, but it's okay. We can adjust it with the adjustments. But you can just see the mist obscuring the bottom of the house there, and you don't want it to obscure it completely. We can go to the adjustments, the Gaussian blur. Blur that in, soften it in first of all to about 20%. Back with the adjustments, the hue, saturation and brightness. Turn that brightness down. We don't want it to be distractingly bright. Maybe about the 45%. Deselect. And that's bathed the whole bottom area in light, so we don't need to add as much detail in places. I'm going to go for layer 6, slide and duplicate it, the bottom version. transform. I'm going to bring it down. Just right at the very bottom. Bring it down here and extend it. And extend it so it's further, wider than the house itself. Try to make it equal on both sides. Just a little bit, extending either side. Deselect. I'm going to go to the adjustments, the Gaussian blur, and again I don't want it to be too crisp, so we'll blur it in to about the 3% and deselect. Slide and duplicate it, the top version. Transform, move it up. Now we're going to line it up so that it meets the first version. If you need to zoom in for this, it's on freeform. So the top left blue dot, hold until it allows you to move. Line it up with that bottom corner. Same with the top right corner, hold it, allows you to move and then line it up. Deselect, and you created a kind of little platform. We take the top version of that layer 6 and merge down. There you go. And perhaps we'll merge it with the top version of layer 6 there as well. So we've got the big blocky one that's the main structure of the house. Maybe take that, merge down, just to reduce the number of layers. And the bottom of that, I'm going to go in with the smudge, put the smudge on the organic rainforest brush, 3% size, maybe about 50% strength. And just the bottom edge of that, I just want to soften it in with the ground so it kind of disappears into the floor a little bit more. We're going to start adding some extra features, so let's go to the top. Let's go to layer 14, tap on it and put the alpha lock on. Let's go in with maybe the third colour on the top row. Go in with a soft brush with an airbrushing, small size, really low on the 2%. Let's put the percentage down to maybe 10%. And we can just suggest that little structures within the windows and the door. Maybe just do it slightly indented, a bit of a frame. And I really don't intend to go overly neat with it. I don't feel that it's necessary. It's only subtle and it's kind of buried there in the mist. And we can even go to the adjustments and the Gaussian blur and blur that in a little bit as well. 3%. Feel like you want to just make any bits a little bit sharper, then you can do that. Maybe just a bit more light on one side. You can spend as long as you want to on features. I don't really want it to stand out too much. Maybe just a slight sense that there's subdivisions there of that top section, but you know, just so it isn't completely flat looking. I don't want to draw the eye to the door, especially. I've got the mist in front, so I need to go underneath that. So let's go to layer 15 and create a layer above that, but it's underneath the mist. So on this layer, I'm going to go in with the 6 colour on the top row, the medium brush with an airbrushing. I'm going to put it at the top end of 2%, pretty much, 100% opacity, and then from this corner, I'm going to join it up with here. And it doesn't have to be to the very corner, otherwise it will tilt the line. Just make sure it goes straight up. Same here, hold it, like that. I'm going to turn that down, slightly lower on the 2%, join it up, maybe draw a line across there like that. Join it up, draw a line across. I'm going to go to the top. I'm also do a lot of these features on the same layer, rather than creating too many different layers. Turn it down, 1%. Have a little line that kicks out at an angle, not too far, and there and there. Join it up. And it has gone over the detail in front, don't worry, we can go back and fix that, just colour it in. And go with the eraser, perhaps to the airbrushing, hard brush. Small size, 100% opacity, tidy up. Back to the brush, let's turn it down, even lower on that 1%. We'll just have some extra little architectural features, hold it so it snaps to a straight line. Hold it, maybe make like a little spike. Some extra things in here. We don't need to necessarily go into the detail of it. It's just nice to have extra things. Try and judge it so it's the same. Like so. Maybe we've got an extra window at the side and probably use a different blue there. Maybe we've got an extra window at the side here. So about halfway down, do a line that shoots across and pitches down at a slight angle. Tidy it up and fill it in. Slightly bigger than the 1%. That could actually be a bit less in terms of the darkness, so alpha lock. Fifth colour. Stick with the same brush, 2% size, maybe 5% opacity, and just go over that. Make it a touch lighter. It will set it further back. Doesn't need to be overly dramatic. Let's turn the alpha lock off again. With the alpha lock off, we're going to move over to this side. Let's go to the selection rectangle. Create a little rectangle. Flood fillet. Deselect. Medium brush. 1% size, 100% opacity. We'll just create a little collar. Maybe it comes down here at an angle. Joins back up. Just bring it down so it doesn't look quite so absolutely neat. That looks probably better. I'm going to switch colour. I'm going to go to the fifth colour on the top row. Soft brush with an airbrushing. 2% size, 20% strength. Let's just start picking out some features. I'm going to run a line across, there and there. So we're bringing out more and more features now. A bit of a division there. There could be just a hint of lines that go across. Suggestion at the roof. We don't need to overdo that. I want to keep that really subtle. Just graze over the surface just a little bit. Stops it being quite so flat. Maybe go back to the sixth colour. Zoom in underneath here. 100% opacity. Again, little structural supports. Maybe 4 of them underneath this section. Maybe they can be back here as well. Maybe 3. Fifth colour. Let's come down here. I think these posts, they're on that layer, so let's put the alpha lock back on. Let's go with the lighter colour. Maybe the fourth colour on the second row. Going with the soft brush, going with the 2% size and maybe about 10% opacity. And we can just bring in some sense of a weathered, lighter colour. This bit of the frame. Turn off the alpha lock. Put the opacity maybe at 20%. Do a line across. Maybe the same over here. Join up with that corner. And just some divisions of that. Try to keep them neat. Again, this roof section, maybe just hint, just slightly graze over it. Get a sense of kind of tiles or something. Stay on the same layer. We're going to muddy it up a little bit. We're going to go to the sixth colour on the top row. Go in the soft brush, 1% size, 20% strength. And we're just going to do some taps. Just a sense of weathered textures and grain on here. I'm doing it manually rather than using a brush that would do it in a less controlled way. I find if I just do it with hand application, be a bit more controlled, and therefore we can just really concentrate it in some areas, do lots of it, less in others. But just that weathered look makes a big difference. Just gives it a more organic, natural feel. So that's everything in the environment. Gives it a realism, a lived-in look. Maybe put it up to 2%. I'm going to be careful. You don't want to make it look like there's a load of streaks running through it. You have some bits where there's just paintwork is more deteriorated, and that's fine. Maybe go the opposite way, go horizontally. Bear it up, and you can see that looks much better in the top section now. I think actually the lines that go horizontally probably do a better job at this because the wood itself goes horizontally. It makes sense. Just takes a few minutes. Gives it that more of a neglected look, like it's a really old building where the paintwork has not been looked after. If it was too pristine, it won't give the creepy kind of haunted look that we're going for. Definitely don't want it to look particularly looked after. Some bits we can really exaggerate. Why not? It's not going to be that easy to notice it underneath the mist. You might need to go over it a bit more for these areas for it to even be noticeable. Back in with a lighter colour, fourth colour, 20% opacity, 2% size, just from the corner, maybe a line that goes all the way across to the other corner. And you can add more of that weathered look with the light colour as well. We should run a line across here. Maybe a line underneath it. Maybe the line that cuts here can be represented going across. And the line underneath there. Okay, I'm going to go to layer 13. I'm going to use the selection, freehand. Let's just grab one of the windows, close the loop, 3 fingers down, copy, 3 fingers down, paste. And then I'm going to move a window up into this top area, put it on freeform, move it down, make sure it's in the middle, somewhere about there. I'm going to zoom in. Then above that, I'm going to create a new layer, layer 20, tap on the N, scroll down to the add blend mode. I'm going to go in with a soft brush with an airbrushing, and then let's have a look at our bright colors. I'm going to go in with the red color, the 8th color, 1% size, 20% strength, and I'm just going to carefully color in the window. I need to go over it a few times, and that's fine. Just try and be neat. Going to have the one light up in the attic that's going to look kind of creepy. Starts off very red. Then I'm going to go to the orange, 2% size still, 20% strength. We can go over it a bit more easily. Down to the 1%, and let's just try and be as neat as we can. Let's not lose the shape. Let's go to the yellow, back up again up to the 2%, and be just a bit more free with the yellow. Doesn't matter quite as much. Perhaps create another layer, again tap on the N, put it on the add blend mode, and this time with the yellow. Just going to push it even further. Going with the eraser, put the eraser on the soft brush, 1% size, 30% strength, and let's just remove some of that for the frame. We don't want to lose the frame. Maybe turn up a bit more, 50% strength or so. Let's go to the layer 20, do the same. Don't want to lose the frame. Back on layer 18. Back in with maybe the 4th colour on the bottom row. Medium brush with an airbrushing. 2% size, 10% strength. Maybe just in here, suggestions at steps. Doesn't have to be anything major. Maybe just bring those down a little bit at the sides there, and just something just so it isn't completely flat looking. Like that. Stay on the same layer. Let's go to the 5th colour. Perhaps I'll go in with the organic rainforest brush. 2% size, 30% strength. And then from the steps, we've got a 2% size, 30% strength, and then from the steps, just do some shapes, suggestions of a path. Doesn't need to be anything major. Turn it up 3%. Gets broader as it comes down here, but press on less. I want it to be a bit darker as it gets closer. The lighter bit is going to be perhaps just in the center there. 6th colour, and then maybe in this section we've just got some grass, different textures in there on either side. Still on layer 18, I'm going in with the 5th colour, 4% size, 10% strength, and just a bit more on the path. A bit more detail, clarity. Not a lot. Maybe the 7th colour. Turn it down, 2%. Turn it up, 30% strength. Give it a bit of an edge. A bit on that border, and then turn it down again, 2%. 40 odd percent strength, and just create some little bits that kind of split up the path. Bits of texture in here, so it splits up the path quite nicely. Then with that whole image, go to the top layer, wrench, copy canvas, and paste. And you'll notice it's got a whole version of the image at the very top. We're going to go then to the adjustments, the perspective blur. Starts from the center, put it on positional if it isn't. I'm going to slide it across to about the 25%, and it just creates this blur. In fact, I'll do it a bit more. Let's put it up to maybe about 30. You can choose. Keeps it focused in the center, and you can move it around. You can play it around with it. Maybe a bit higher is quite good. Puts a sharp focus in the center, then everything else becomes a bit more dreamlike, a bit more nightmare-like, perhaps. Where to locate it? I'm going to keep it in the center. Deselect. Okay, I'm going to leave this here at this point. I'm going to do some extended details on it, which I'm going to make available to everyone this Halloween as a special treat. All you have to do is go to the description, sign up, and get access via a link to the extended version, normally only available to patrons. So if you haven't done already, hit subscribe, and I shall see you back here soon. Bye for now.